Coming up on this week's episode of the Xennial Odyssey podcast.
I never thought I would see the day when we legitimized marijuana.
But I love seeing the psychedelic revolution right now. I love seeing people who didn't realize that mushrooms can potentially cure their PTSD in the right circumstance.
You ever smoke weed with your dad? Would really push Oxycontin. We villainize drug addicts. We villainize drug addicts.
It's easy to throw a stone when no one's immediately there to throw one back.
His cellmate was a serial killer. And welcome back to the Xennial Odyssey podcast with Remy and Bobby Rocks.
We are here.
All right, so on this episode today, we figured we'd tackle a heavy topic here. We would tackle drugs. Yeah, we would tackle, and yeah, I was saying tackle. Yeah, we would tackle drugs and what seemed to happen in our lifetimes as far as that. I know in our lifetimes, I mean, we had the war on drugs. We had...
Oh, wait, before we jump to the heavy part, let's do the light part. Can I lead off on this?
Sure, go for it.
To talk about drugs is a huge, huge blanket, you know, because we could be talking about caffeine, we could be talking about helium, we could be talking about whatever. We could be talking about, not helium. All right, that was a weird one to say because I was like thinking of a weird voice. But drugs are a huge blanket. So we're going to talk about a lot about drugs, but I think that we need to start with the fact that we're watching a drug revolution right now happen in our lifetime.
Yep.
With psychedelics and with people being educated about how certain drugs can help with PTSD. And like even seeing marijuana completely made recreationally legal in my lifetime, I did not see that coming.
No. The first time I went into a dispensary, I went to the one that's near us in Fall River.
Yeah.
And I mean, they had everything on the wall. They had everything on LED screens. They had bud tenders. First off, the fact they have a bud tender.
Yeah.
And I specifically went in there for something that was more heavily CBD. And I told them I wanted it to help me go to sleep. And so this person was able to educate me on it. And then they gave me one of the products and it had the scan code on the back. And I was able to scan it and I could go to the website for the company that harvested it and manufactured it. And I could see all the levels that they took from that batch. And I literally took a step back in my head and said, my God, I never thought I would see the day when we legitimized marijuana.
100%. Yeah, your first time in a legal dispensary is really amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It just smells beautiful. Everyone's in a great mood because it's not booze. No one's depressed.
No one talks about it as weed either. It's flower. This is a wonderful flower.
Yeah.
Oh, love that.
Because it is. You know,
Yes,
we've
and it
forgotten that. It is literally just flowers perfectly, but it's remarkable. I remember the first time when I went into one, I was just like a kid at the Wonka factory. I could not believe it. It's the first thing you think is, I wish I had $800 because you want to try everything just as someone who advocates and understands it. But it's been remarkable because you got to understand that when me and Bob were in high school, you had to sneak behind a dumpster to do that shit. You had to ride out on country roads late at night with your friends. There wasn't. And you were looked at kind of scummy. Like stoners were kind of treated shitty because the world didn't understand that they were just people trying to discover themselves.
It was like, let's go back to another cultural reference, the Big Lebowski. That's how you were looked at. You were looked at like Lebowski.
Yep, just a couch sitter. That's
the
it.
bum's lost. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for real. And so seeing that change is amazing. And like, you know, when I was in high school and college, like you couldn't really like necessarily advertise it. And you see every kid on TikTok now is like, I do that, their name's like Sativa King and shit. And it's just like the world has changed. But I think in that sense, because we're going to talk about some heavier stuff in a minute, but I love seeing the psychedelic revolution right now. I love seeing people who didn't realize that mushrooms can potentially cure their PTSD in the right circumstances.
Absolutely. Yep. And let's give a big shout out to Colorado.
Big shout out, man. That's the heart of it.
Yep, that is the heart of it. This is just me personally. I'm not giving any shout outs to Oregon because Oregon they went too far.
Yeah.
They like decriminalized everything.
Yeah. But saying too far though, I guess we got to see how it plays out.
I just saw that. I'm like, we really? Like
Portugal did that and it's worked out great for them. It's worked out great for them, man. They have no drug crimes, no OVDs because they've taken away the taboo of doing it.
Oh, we can go into that category because that's a big problem in the U.S. The puritanical,
of course,
underlines of our society that still exists to this day because that plays a part in it. But do you got anything else you want to add? Or
no, I just wanted to say that, you know, and there are great advancements, but unfortunately now we're going to get into the part where we think in the medical way that drugs are super, super dangerous.
Yes.
Like they're just slowly killing us. And what do? We go to the doctor and say, hey, these drugs are killing me. And he'll give you a new drug. to cope with those drugs.
Yep. Oh, I'm sad. Okay. Oh, I'm not as sad, but now I have this. Well, okay, we'll take this.
I can only fuck for 20 minutes. Oh, do you want to fuck for 40? Yeah, we got stuff. No, really?
Hours. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Priapism.
Yeah. All right, so we'll do our usual. We'll go to a break and we'll listen to some music. We'll come back and we'll just pick up this where it left off. I don't know. You want to talk us away, Rem?
Listen, guys, it's a good time to get up and go make sure your pee's yellow. All right, you got to make sure you're healthy. So we're gonna go do the same. I'm gonna look at Bobby's and he's gonna look at mine, and then we're gonna be back.
That's called third-party checking.
That's got a name now.
Yes. All right, and everybody, as always, welcome back to the Odyssey.
Xennial.
All right, now we're back. So where do you want to jump off, Rem?
No, you made really, really interesting points about where this is going to go with the expectancy thing. So please take the horn.
You want me to start with the war on drugs? Because I mean, I think our society, that's where it starts.
Yeah, Nixon.
Yeah. It starts in the late 60s. It starts with the quote unquote war on drugs, which to me is just the biggest piece of shit ever, because
set America back.
Because we had we had departments of our own government forming partnerships with the cartels for the drugs.
CIA, man. That's where we got all our cocaine.
Look at the movie Blow. Look at Boston George.
It's all real shit, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
They basically privatized it. That's all they did. They made it, if the little people were trying to do it, fuck you, you go to jail for 25 years, and they made it so they could own it. They could own the network and the pipeline.
And for the bigger cartels or the bigger importers, we'll turn a blind eye if you throw us a few crumbs in on criminals.
Of course,
and all that
billions
shit.
of dollars speaks very, very loud.
Yes, it does. Money talks. 60 Minutes showed that to us in Colorado, by the way, when they went in there and did the first episode on like how marijuana was going in there, and they then talked to a member of the FBI who even said, like, all right, so Colorado's doing this, correct? They've legalized it here. They're doing this, but federally it's illegal. Correct. They've generated this much money. Correct. But that's legally obtained money. Correct. They've used some of that money to pay to pay in taxes. Correct. So why aren't you storming down doors in Colorado? And they danced around it, and they just said money talks.
Yeah. They're making billions in revenue.
Exactly. And that's, by the way, that's the other reason why our government is talking about the natural steps of decriminalizing marijuana and then legalizing it recreationally, because money talks.
Taxes,
because
baby.
they now see the cash cow that they're missing out on.
Even Fall River, where I live, there's like 5 different dispensaries. The roads are finally getting fixed.
Yeah. Literally one right down the street from where I live.
Yeah. It's just we're pretty much surrounded, which is great. It's very surreal, though. I did not expect to see it as rampant as I have in my lifetime, you know?
No, you're right.
Like taking vape pens on a plane, not getting any shit. Like it's cool, but it's kind of like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, it's like everywhere you go, you smell flower.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's something that, I mean, it happened, but not to this extent.
No, you'd be able to be like, you'd like smell it a mile away, but now it's just like, yeah, there's pretty much, because everybody smokes now.
Yeah.
It's the medicine for the masses.
Yeah. Now I can pretty much tell what someone's smoking, and I can be like,
You can tell if it's good or bad.
Someone could only afford middies.
Right, exactly.
But back to the war on drugs, which is far and away lost.
Gross.
I mean,
There's still people doing time for weed.
Look at what, and look how it was portrayed to us. This is your brain on drugs, like
egg.
a fucking fried egg.
Dude, I love smoking weed and eating fried eggs.
Yeah, yes.
I had the wrong takeaway from that commercial.
That's such a good idea, right?
Yeah,
now.
I'm gonna go fry 2 eggs.
Yeah.
This is my brain on eggs.
And I think the best way I can put it for me is we've been talking about normalizing. So
Yeah.
my father was a hippie. My father talked about how all the drugs he did, but he did it in a way where he would always end it with, "No, I'm not telling you just go out there and go fucking ape shit.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, you know what? If you experiment with drugs or whatever, like I'm not going to come down hard on you. Maybe I'll be disappointed at certain things, but you know what? It's only if you make a habit out
Poor
of it.
choices from it.
Exactly. Making habits out of it is one thing.
Yeah, that's how my dad was.
But trying something for the sake of trying it, whatever. I
And
did
even
it.
once I started smoking pot a lot in high school, and it was still, you'd still do 25 years if you got caught a few times with the stuff. My dad one day was just like, "Listen, just smoke at home, please. If you guys and your friends want to smoke, you could smoke here safely. I just don't want you guys driving around." And it was like, that's what you do. I remember I looked at him, I was like, that's parenting. Because I'm not going to stop smoking it, and you want to keep me safe. Word, I'll smoke here.
You ever smoke weed with your dad?
Yeah, but it was once his initial dementia had set in. So it wasn't the experience it would have been. But it was cool, man. I got him one of these vape pens. You know those vape pens that everyone's using now?
Yep.
But he... Don't worry forever who laughs at this, okay? Because I laughed at it first, and it's okay to laugh at. But he was having the onset of dementia and Alzheimer's. So like he'd be sitting there, he'd get high, and then he'd think it was his coffee stirrer. So he'd stick this like $50 pen with like $50 worth of oil, and he'd just fucking ruin it, stirring his coffee.
That's amazing, though.
And then he'd call me again. He'd be like, "I lost my pen." I'm like, "Dad, look in your coffee." It's like, fuck. So yeah, I did. And I didn't get the experience that a lot of people do, but it was still really cool. We got to bond on it, and it gave him some peace and helped him sleep and shit. So
Yeah, that's great. No, I have one experience where I smoked with my dad, and one of his hippie friends had come down. His hippie friend was dying of cancer, and he had so he was one of the first. This is like early 2000s,
Yeah.
and he had medicinal marijuana. And I mean that shit was good, by the way.
yeah, I know.
That shit was good.
3 hits, and you're like, "I'm good."
So him and my brother were matching out on the deck,
Yeah.
by my parents' house. And my brother had blueberry bud, but phenomenal, by the way. So we're matching this, and then my dad came out, and he was just kind of like, at this point, my dad's someone who was in his mid-50s and was kind of like,
Give me some.
Well, he was kind of like, "Oh, I'll partake in it a little bit." And he's like, "Oh," looking at me like they like, I love my family, because I learned, because being the youngest, you learn from your older siblings' mistakes.
Well, if they're nice enough to let you.
Yeah. So they just thought I didn't do things, and then there was a situation where he's like,
Oh, no shit.
"Oh, really? Oh," and he was kind of being like, "What do you know about it?" And he takes the first hit, and he starts coughing, and we all start laughing at him.
Of course, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, and then I did I think I blew a ring and then made it bigger, and I blew another ring through it. And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. This is my first time." Like
Showing up your dad with a flex.
Yeah. So then my brother went down to the local neighborhood where we were going to smoke more weed, and I was just
teenageness.
I was just chilling in the living room, and my mom was away, and my mom happened to call, and my dad's like all stoned and whatever, and he's and he's like, "Hey, honey, guess what I did with your son for the first time in like 20 years. And then my favorite, by the way, was he's like, no, not even that son, the other son.
You're gonna be surprised by this.
So then I'm kind of like getting like paranoid, like because my mom is the straight and narrow.
Yeah,
one.
I get it.
So she starts giving him. I didn't know this until he told me. She starts giving him like ideas of things to watch on TV that would probably freak us out.
Oh, that's funny.
And once like I figured that out, like it was like too much for me, and I'm just like, I gotta go.
Yeah, I can't do this.
I gotta go smoke more weed.
Right. I gotta alleviate this with more.
But that was good, and then it was good for like my dad and his friend because they were able to relive good times and all
Joyful
that.
youth.
And the next morning, because his friend was actually staying with us, I came out of my room and I was coming down here, and they were just like blaring Pink Floyd and just smoking weed in the house, and I'm just like. And if my first reaction is, so because it's you smoking weed, it's cool in the house.
Yeah, of course.
But if I do that, I get shit. So yeah, that's my personal story on weed experiences with parents. But back to what my dad would tell me, he would almost honestly say, he would almost make it like into a contest, like, yeah, you'll never do anything. You ever do acid? You ever do this? Like I did all that shit back in the 60s, and it's like, okay, like thanks, Dad. But let's go back to the war on drugs, because like I was saying, in the 80s, we had all these commercials, the scare tactics. And I think it's fantastic because scare tactics were shown through research not to work, but yet not as prevalently, but we still do them. Like think about vaping. Think about vape pens and all that, and they're trying not to have teenagers vaping and all that. And I know it's very prevalent, but we still use the scare tactics. We still have those things like there's metal in them. We turn the vape pens turning into monsters and attacking like people. And it's like, when are we going to learn? When are we going to learn that didn't work? It didn't work, and it's not working. It's not going to work. It's not going to deter them. And if you were a stubborn prick, like anti-establishment person like me, then you just see that as like challenge accepted. But yeah, I think where Remy was going to go when we were talking about moving away from the medicinal benefit of things like marijuana and psychedelics is into the business side of it for like the medical industry. That's where we got things like OxyContin, and then people got super hooked on that, and then it led down the rabbit hole. The sad reality of the fact that people would your doctors would really push OxyContin, and then at some point you realize that black tar heroin is like super cheap.
Yeah, same thing.
Yep, it's super cheap, and guess what? You're going to turn to that, and here we go.
And then you'll get hit with the fentanyl, and you'll die, and your family will be left to fucking struggle. It's interesting too. You talk about something that serious, but something as light as benzos. My doctor threw benzos at me when I worked with kids, and they fucking ruined my life for a spell. Yeah, I mean, I got off them and then I had a seizure and shit. So it was pretty crazy. But I mean, that my hardest experience with drugs, and I've experienced my whole life, and I've kind of experimented, was a legal drug that I was actually given. It's crazy.
Yeah, and crazy. So I know you had stepped away for a moment, but I was talking about how in the 80s we had the commercials with the scare tactics, and then we had research come out that say that scare tactics don't work.
Yeah, I know.
But yet we still use it. And I talked about like, because young children and teenagers are vaping now, and you could see commercials of like, a monster comes out of the vape pen and all that.
Yeah,
and,
right.
And it's like, we haven't learned though.
No.
Yeah. And this is part of the problem. If you want to, again, this is my take on many things in life. Now we're talking about drugs. If you want to rightfully educate the target audience that you're looking to educate, then they have to have some representation at the table, number one. And number two, you have to stop trying to bullshit them, because it doesn't work. Like, I watched a lot of these fear things and I said, oh yeah, well, fuck you.
What they prove was
challenge accepted.
Was scared straight with those kids, A lot of those kids, it just traumatizes them more and wants them to even act out in a more extreme way.
Yep. And the other thing too is we have to, I brought up earlier in the episode about our stereotypical puritanical morals and ethics and values that still underlie our society. And we have to get over that stuff. Like that, these are they're roadblocks. They get in the way. Like, it's just like, no, you're going to hell. Well, what about for someone like me who's openly agnostic? So I'm going,
I just tell you, you're still going.
So I'm going nowhere.
Yeah, right. You're staying on Earth.
Yeah. You know what? I have my own, sorry, this is, again, maybe it's ADHD. I don't know. It just, for whatever reason, a Dane Cook joke popped in my head because I was talking about agnostic and atheisms.
Yeah.
And he does have one decent joke. Yeah, I think.
He's got a few.
Yeah. But my favorite joke by him is when like an atheist sneezes, then what do you say to them? When you die, nothing happens.
It's fair though.
Yeah. But I mean, there's also you're a terrible person. People who do drugs are terrible people. And that can get us into something else, Rem, that really pisses me off, is we villainize drug addicts.
Yeah, of course.
We villainize drug addicts, and a majority of drug addicts that's them self-medicating.
Yeah, they're struggling.
They're struggling, and they're self-medicating.
Yeah.
And they can be traumatized by things, and we're villainizing them, and we don't talk about the pain that these people suffer. And yes, we should also talk about when you're an addict, it's not just you being an addict. It impacts your family and the people close to you.
Yeah, man. Yes. You're selling your grandma's TV.
Yeah, but back to that thing. I mean, there's so many different topics. I mean, so many different areas I can go in about that whole the approach we take to certain things.
Yeah.
And the drug addiction is just one of them. Like, why do we still villainize people?
Because people who are already broken need to feel bigger and better than, and I think that's, for some reason, I think that's how they do it.
Yeah, and a lot of them are doing the same drugs they're villainizing.
They're probably doing worse shit. They're the ones who are putting the fentanyl in the drugs to kill people.
They're the ones saying that. They're the ones saying that, like, homosexuality is a sin, and they're the ones who are closeted homosexuals.
Oh yeah, they're all sucking dick while they say that.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's just that's a testimony to the double standards of social media and the double standards people are allowed to have nowadays.
Yep.
It's easy to throw a stone when no one's immediately there to throw him back.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's easy for society to
keyboard warriors.
Yeah, and to really villainize drug addicts, because to see them as human or people struggling, they would have to help them.
Yep.
But making them the bad guys makes it easier to keep them down in society and to not give them the opportunities to break free from that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
It's sad.
So Rem, what other angles were you looking to go in our episode's discussion today about drugs?
Well, there's just so much. It's so huge and encompassing. I think that I personally, and this will catch me heat, but I don't care. I'm kind of an encourager of people discovering themselves with the use of certain drugs. I know that I was a really miserable, anxious kid till I found marijuana. I know that I really felt like I was broken in my head until I had tripped a couple times, and so I think there are a lot of benefits now for people who, and here's the thing. If you're approaching these things to like see dragons and fucking blah, 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 no. You have to approach them and say whatever they give me is what I'll take away from them. But I think you have a society, and there's hip hoppers. Moment of silence. That was the lamest thing I ever said. Don't cut this. I need this to burn in my eternity. A lot of hip hop artists like A$AP Rocky and stuff singing about proponents of psychedelics. There's a lot of hip hop psychedelia now, which is fucking amazing. Like, we had trip hop in the 90s and the early aughts, but this is like rappers singing about how good mushrooms are for your life, And so I think that it's important to frame it that as much as there's a chemical drug war going on with the FDA and humans, that I think the other aspect of drug culture is waking up and tuning into the fact that there is potential for self-healing discovery and growth and spiritual growth if you approach these things like the medicine they are. Yeah,
I've talked to Rem off the air, and we've had discussions about how I also agree that at some point in my life, marijuana saved my life.
Fact.
I went through periods of just beyond just regular teen angst and adolescent development where the stereotypes are, oh, you're just going through things and you'll grow out of it or this or that. And what happens when you don't grow out of it? And the message you then say to yourself, what's wrong with me? And then on top of that, if you have, I called it like I have a loud mind.
Yeah.
Like my mind is always got things going on in it. And my favorite thing about enjoying marijuana, like once the high hit, is that it was like my mind went shh.
Quiet.
And I had 45 minutes to an hour of just a quietness, of a stillness. And that was wonderful. And if I didn't have those moments, I think eventually I would have taken my own life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it helped me have a normal eating schedule. It helped me sleep. It helped me socialize at parties when I wanted to stand in a corner. Like, it was a profound tool. Marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it, was a profound tool for me growing into a healthier adult and me liking who I was and me understanding that it's okay to be strange and weird and that there are other people like that, But I can't imagine how much of just a fucking buzzkill I would be. but I can't. I know I wouldn't if I ended up in my life I was in, but then not taking it wouldn't have ended me up in that life. So I can't be sure. But I know that like day to day, even like if I don't smoke for 2 days, you know it.
Yeah.
Because I'll headbutt a hole in some drywall. You know, that's just a fact.
And then I did take my dad's advice, by the way, and I did experiment with drugs, and but that's all it was. It was experimenting.
Yeah.
But I did have a lot of people I grew up with that it wasn't an experiment. I mean,
They're dead now.
Yeah. I mean, sadly for me, that some of them aren't with us anymore. Some of them are just been in and out of rehabs. And very few of them, but I do have success stories. I do have friends who have turned themselves around, and
yeah, me too.
And they live successful.
My cousin, man, he was right there, and he didn't. It was amazing. It was beautiful.
And some of it, maybe if you want to say, because I was a suburban kid, some of it's just filling in the boredom and the monotony of living in the suburbs.
Oh, of course.
But the other thing that was a problem that I witnessed with my own friends is like, it was like they were trying to up an ante with themselves. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, well, then, yeah, like, all right.
Well, that's the problem with casual drug use, though.
Yes.
Is that people look at it like a tier system, TIER, in the sense that, oh, I've done weed, now I want to go on to this. Oh, I've done that now. And it shouldn't be looked at like ascending stairs. Yeah. It should be looked at like, okay, this is a chemical that needs to be taken serious. I need to study it. But but that was even me, though. Like, I was like, oh, I took 2 rolls. I can take 3 rolls this week. Oh, I took 2 hits of acid. I can take 4 hits of acid.
You know, it's funny you put it that way, Rem, because that gets back to the problem with, the government or the medical industry, whatever have you. Like, oh, marijuana is a gateway drug. Well, it is in the way you framed it because you've operationally defined it as a gateway drug.
Yeah, and so now people feel like it has to be. That's exactly the thing. Yeah, exactly. It's interesting.
And you present it that way, and you've now changed the kind of the schema in someone's mind.
You've changed the dialogue.
You've changed their perception.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not. This isn't an area where it's your place, and now we have the reason. It just blows my mind, by the way, that like we went like 70 years where nobody was doing research on marijuana.
They just agreed that it was wrong, and they stood the fuck back.
Exactly.
Now you have people who are like, I can tell you what its DNA structure is, the terpenes that have been extracted. Like, it's amazing.
I wish I could go back in time and just bitch slap the people who made Reefer Madness. I really do.
It's a work of art, though. It's a work of high, trashy art.
Yeah, it's a work of train wreck, high, trashy art.
But it's classic American problem. Yeah. That's why it needs to exist, because people need to say, oh, this is what America does.
Yeah.
Like I found an ad yesterday, I think I sent you on your phone. It's like this kid on the ground with a marijuana pipe, and he's dead. And he's like, you try one marijuana, what happens when your mom finds your corpse? And it's just that shit, it kills me, because we know openly now to make fun of the propaganda. Like the big one for me when I was in health class was, if you take LSD, you're definitely going to jump off a porch. You're going to think you have wings, and you're going to jump off a porch. So don't do that to your family. Yeah. That was the framing of it. And the first time I took LSD, it was like, wow, I've been lied to.
Yep.
That's 100% my takeaway was, oh my God, everybody's collectively lied to me.
And if we could talk about a comedian that really opened the door. I mean, yeah, George Carlin opened the door, but like Bill Hicks.
I knew you were going.
Yeah. Bill Hicks.
No, we can't because Hicks has to be his own episode.
He does. But
I think all those comedians who should have been presidents need to be their own episode.
Yeah, and I just leave it with he was really for psychedelics the one who opened the door.
And then the way he got cancer. I mean, that last story is like he didn't even let anybody know he had it.
Yep.
He took an eighth of mushrooms with his friends like a week before he died. They went out. They all had a shared hallucination. You know about that story?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And like they were like, because my thing is I've had a shared hallucination once, and my big takeaway was, if you saw that too, that's not a hallucination. Hallucinations are defined by a person experiencing something that's not there. So for two people to be like, did you just see that star fall out of the sky, grow legs, and then run off into the desert? You probably saw something. And I like to think that in Bill Hicks' last trip or whatever, that they were just tuned in and the gods just like shined a light, flew through a couple fucking shooting stars, just something. But like, and they said afterward they knew, because like after he passed, they were like, oh, that's what that trip was. That was him accepting his death. That's like some heavy shit.
That's some heavy existential.
Like I trip a lot, and I don't know if I could trip if I knew I was dying in a few weeks. Yeah. I don't know if I would just be crippled by that. But yeah, man, Bill Hicks was like, he again, a prophet, right? I mean, it's hard to throw that around, but really, like anyone could run on a Hicks platform right now and say the same shit he said, and they would be voted president. They wouldn't have to change it for anything.
So I guess the question is like, where do we go from here as a society and as a species when it comes to drugs? And we hinted on it a little bit.
I think that we continue to decriminalize.
Yep.
I think that you might have to criminalize things like heroin and stuff because they're just so dangerous. And I think the long-lasting impact is really that can't be played with. But I think that, and I think you're going to see it because it started with weed. Now mushrooms are illegal in Colorado. Like, this is the way things are going. And I think that when we start to educate people, legalize stuff that doesn't kill, by the way, that's key. I'm not saying necessarily legalize cocaine, you know what I mean? Even though it was. But I think we need
soda at one point.
Yeah, it was. I mean, God, I wouldn't mind stopping for a Coke. Don't get me wrong. You're like, I'm in such a good mood now. But I think that we need to stop villainizing. I think that we need to do more drug education. We really do. If your kids want to try something, have them study it. Watch a documentary with them. There's so much information and there's even research papers by colleges, like, educate yourselves. But I think that we need to take the emphasis off punishing and we need to put the emphasis on educating.
Yeah. No.
Sorry, that was good.
I know. No, it was because it was very good, Rem, and it leads me in because that's something that we have to do across multiple platforms in our society.
Yes.
We have to stop being punitive and we have to be rehabilitative and educational and informative. And I think of like another episode we can do at another time. We could just talk about the prison system in our
the 4-income prison system. Really?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. There's a guy I follow, by the way. Do I follow him? Yeah, and he does reels. You can find him on Facebook if you go.
Reels are artwork.
Yeah,
when done right.
So he spent 19 years in prison. I think he went to prison when he was 18 years old.
For what, may I ask?
And so it took me about 20 reels because he does a lot of educational about what
did he go to jail for?
So he said him and his friends did they did breaking and entering.
Oh, yeah,
they didn't know somebody was home. So it's a home invasion. Yeah, so then it becomes home invasion. But then right after that,
they killed him.
No. But he was trying to. There was something involving a drug deal between him and two people, and then he pulled out his gun and he shot them. He didn't kill them, but all of that was involved in one thing.
Yeah.
And so he finally, after 20 like reels, he talked about that, and I commend him for it. But he talks about like what it's like in the prison, but he talks about like the culture, the way people interact with one another. And one thing I found fantastic is he said his like prophet, like cellmate, the one who he like said like, wow, he gave me the best advice I could have as a growing young man, was a serial killer.
Doesn't surprise me.
Like, you know,
we've worked with them. Just because people are sick doesn't mean they don't have shit to give. I hate to say it.
Yeah, no, you're right.
I hate to.
Yep. Like for example, if our podcast really takes off, I would love
when
I would love to get him to have a conversation with him on the podcast.
Yeah, man. I gotta say, I'm like fiending, and I know we have to earn it, and I know it's gonna take a while, but I'm fiending for us to have some interesting guests. I think it's gonna be really, really cool. And I think that even from my interviewing before, because I've interviewed, you know that. I mean, I interviewed the last surviving Heaven's Gate member. It's one of my favorite moments as a journalist. You know, we could talk about that too. I'd love to get into that, but my point is like, I think you and I would know ways to frame questions differently and ask questions that people don't ask.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and I think that's what the world needs. Because if you watch your average interview now with people, I'm sorry, man.
It's combative.
Like, and more than that, it's everyone asks the same shit of everyone.
Yep.
Like, and I just think that
the same bullshit questions are asked. And when they're not done like that, it's combative because they want to go viral. For something. They want to go viral.
And they're looking for a clip that'll exactly.
Yeah, like in all honesty, I mean, R. Kelly is a horrible human being, but you know that the whole point of that line of questioning was to
get that reaction.
Get that reaction. Yep.
Y'all treat me like I'm a criminal. You're like, you're a horrible man. So stop what you're doing.
The exact way you should be treated.
Yeah, and that's Gayle King, and a lot of those journalists know how to do that really pointed shit, you know? But also like, just light him on fire next time.
Yeah.
Don't ask him questions.
Yeah, like what the fuck, you know? All right. So I think once again, as always, we cover a lot of good ground. And we got some more topics we can talk about on the next time.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Someone's at the door. Yeah, I don't mean to keep bothering you guys, but could you get out of here?
Oh, you pesky custodian.
That guy.
Hey.
Thanks, Bobby.
Oh, you're very welcome. All right. And as always, everybody, this Odyssey has come to a conclusion, but we look forward to touching base with you again next time.
Thank you for tolerating us.
Yes.
We appreciate you.
Take care, everybody.